record it now. Okay, there we go. Okay, everybody see the screen?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, Lauren and Cindy have been awesome getting things done on time, and now it's getting these things into the chunks. Basically, if you can see, we have our different categories, which are the different capitals, plus a separate category for activities, which is this first category of what people like to do. Not sure what we'll do with that, but we'll do something probably. So like cultural capital, we have a definition with it that's not on here, I'm sorry, but is in a different document. I've already gone through and taken what was done in the negative deviant county on the far right there in San Augustine County. And one of the most interesting thing and sort of cultural capital is cultural norms, social norms about physical activity. Sports is coming up as a real big, important thing. I think we've talked about this too, about for men, especially when I was able to talk to men, it was sports and something about work and purpose. Women tended to talk a little bit more about some social aspect of it, and seniors as well, talking about the social interactions, the group aspect and classes. Haven't really gotten to a real organized presentation of this yet. I've just gotten into one of the two positive deviant counties. And it's not, I think it's going to end up being not too far off from that presentation that I did in Banff about this work, sort of the preliminary look at it. But I think it'll just be much more organized and detailed so we could write it up. So I'd say we're making good progress. And I've added to it, Lauren, I think you'll see here some of the things I've started to add from my notes also, rather than just the quotes. So I think what I'd like to do is maybe send it out to the whole group once this structure is in order and maybe cleaned up a little bit, and finally start to write this up. Obviously there's really, I don't think there's much room for comment right now from everyone since it's not done. But I would like to get it out later and get some feedback on it. Okay.
Christian, I think that the community capitals framework is a useful one. I was reading through the document before the call, just looking at some of the stuff you've added in since yesterday.
Okay.
I think it was a good choice. So kudos to you and Cindy and Lauren for going that route and figuring out a way to talk about all of these things. I think it is a useful way too.
Yeah, and I'll bring over here a one pager that I've shared. Everybody see that about the community capitals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had to tweak the definitions. This was more from a community development context.
Is the other Word document you sent, is that where the definitions are, Christian? Those pieces around each of the
That is
fronts?
Yes. Our code structure and how we've changed the definitions from this to more of a physical activity context.
I think it's very useful.
Yeah, thank you. And I see Jim, you just joined in. Would you mind, it's good to have you on board. Would you mind introducing yourself? We have a new attendee, Shay Daly, who is one of our former doc students, just finished up here at WVU and is now at Southern Maine. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, Jim.
Sure. So I'm Jim Reddick. I'm a center director with the USDA Agriculture Research Service in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Oh, excellent. Very cool.
And that's good. Yeah. Fantastic, Jim. Good to have you on board. So I think the next steps for the qualitative are to finish off that table that I was working on and then share that with the group for comment and start writing it up, I think. I think the really interesting part is going to be the interpretation and how it applies to programming or whatever it may be, policy or environments in rural areas. As I'm talking, I also feel like I could apply for a sabbatical next year. So I feel like it's sabbatical time. You think I could get an RV for my sabbatical and just go to rural America? Anyway, but I digress. So the next piece, which, unless anybody has any more about the qualitative aspect.
No, it looks good.
Yeah, Lauren, any comments from having read through these things?
No, I don't have any additions. It's been a fun process so far.
Yeah. You're learning a lot about Texas.
I am. It's good. Good exposure.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so thank you, Lauren. And yeah, Cindy, you and Cindy have done a great bit of work on this, which I greatly appreciate.
Hey,
yeah, Mike.
Just a quick question, and again, I just haven't had a chance to go through, but I'm sort of struck. We just had some key informant interviews in one of our counties on Monday, and I'm seeing some of the things that was fascinating to me was how much parent blaming was happening in this county, and I was wondering if I've kind of seen a little bit of that here. I'm just curious if that came out in the interviews.
Yes. Lauren, do you want to comment on that? So Cindy and I were the first two readers. I read the positive deviant counties and Cindy read the negative deviant. And I believe the comment that Cindy made is, do these people know they're saying some pretty racist stuff? And I was like,
well, and that was just it. It was primarily from like white, I would like a better term, do-gooders, if you will, in the community that were trying to promote sort of physical activity, particularly youth sports, and how much they kept saying we're trying everything, but the parents just don't see the value, and the parents just aren't there to drive them, and the parents don't see it was just fascinating.
Yeah, that definitely came out, especially in the negative deviant, right, Christian?
Yeah, right. And this was
really talked a lot about.
And this was a negative deviant type county that we were working in.
Yeah.
I wish I could find the quote for you. But it talks about, the school people talk about the school as like the only trusted place. Parents aren't involved. What was interesting when we talked to a man that ran the Boys and Girls Club, he was the only African American we spoke with, and there's a large African American community in the town that we were. And he said, honestly, it's because people have hourly work that is not nearby. So they're working, and if they say that day you could get a couple extra hours, they're taking those extra hours instead of saying, no, I got to be home at my kid's sport, or Boys and Girls Club activity or something. So generally he said, a lot of the men are not involved. If people are involved, it's women and moms.
Right. Yep.
There is some, poverty blaming. There was there were quotes about those people, and anytime you see those people, you're probably stereotyping.
Yeah, and we talked about too. There was a fair bit of blaming things on the quote culture of poverty, and I ended up sending Christian and Cindy some stuff about how not true that is, which they obviously knew, but some research.
Yeah. No, and that just echoes what we were hearing on Monday, and so it's kind of interesting to see some of the same, themes emerging. So, okay, I was curious.
Well, and then here's another one. Actually, nobody else had read this, but this was in my notes, and I'd totally forgotten about it. I'm highlighting it now. So the woman that worked at the desk at the hotel, I was just talking to her about the project and asked, if you were to be active, what gets in the way? And she said the same thing, but for women. A lot of the women that she was friends with or whatever work in nursing homes, hospitals, a lot of shift workers with evening and night shift work. And just not being able to use stuff because of the hours. So it's, a financial barrier. That's how poverty, I guess, could link to it. And just the need to pick up extra hours and things like that. So. So it's, I mean, there are undertones of other things, but yeah.
Yep. Nope. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then in both of the, so in the positive deviant, we talked to 2 different school districts, and they both talked about there's there's an extreme pride in the school sports, and yet nobody shows up to sports games. Right? No parents show up, or they have just very low participation from parents.
Right.
So, yeah, there's something going on there. So, we're picking up a similar.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what's different in the positive deviant.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Any other comments about qualitative work? All right. We may be striking on some big things here. Okay. Second topic, what to do with the quantitative data. So the code book is attached. Hopefully, I mean, there's a lot going on in this. So the key thing to look at is we have, I guess from the dependent variable side, we have physical activity guideline prevalence. So we have a continuous variable. All right. For male and female residents at the county level. So we have male and female prevalence. We've put that into quartiles too. So that's some of this is the dependent variable highlighted here in quartiles, and that's coming from the continuous variable, physical activity guideline prevalence for males in 2011 and then females, okay? And then a lot of the different types of environmental variables, some natural environment from CDC Wonder are in here, and the census. A lot of it's a lot of continuous variables. So we've been struggling for a while to get someone to work on the analysis, help us structure this, figure out what type of analysis to run. And so I was talking to Shay about it. Shay, do you want to just mention quickly maybe some of the ideas you had just based on your dissertation? I mean, similar analysis or not? Maybe some of the ideas we talked about?
Yeah, sure. So one of the aims in the dissertation just did a path analysis, and it's because you're running from the observed level, where you have the scale. Like you're not including the measurement model with that. Like in a true SEM, you have both a measurement model and a structural model, which is the measurement runs a CFA or confirmatory factor analysis, and then the structural side is the regression. And you kind of put them together in this full structure, and you can account for error depending. Like there's really technical stuff, but the point is like setting it up. But that's the basic premise to some form of outcome. You can run mediation, moderation, all inclusive. So there's a lot of advantages to that. One of the aims did do that. The other 2 aims used parallel latent growth modeling, but that's because I wanted to look at the longitudinal effects of 2 different processes simultaneously run together. And I don't think this isn't time-based that I know of, based on what I've seen. Right. And if I'm wrong, please jump in. If you want to look at something longitudinal, we can, but you just have to be able to match data over time.
Nope, not doing that.
So I mean, I have to. So looking at this is really good. It gives me a sense of the structures of the variables. And then I think my next thing is if I could actually see the numbers themselves, so I can start looking at descriptives. That gives me a sense of what we're working with, like what are the ranges, if there's any strong skews to things, how do we piece this up so that it makes sense. Like when I look at this, Alfgeir and Mike and others wrote a paper about profiles, and I can send it to you, Christian, and I send it to the group. What they did was they kind of looked at the profiles to flush out some of the unique differences among levels. And I don't know if that's where you guys want to go with this or not. They didn't use structural equation modeling, but that might be a better fit for this type of analysis where you have a continuous outcome. But we definitely have the parameters to work within an STM framework, or at least a very fancy path analysis, and
Yeah.
probably figure out what you guys want to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, so really the foundation of this group is, from the built environment, physical activity, evidence and measures and measurement tools. We try to apply them to rural places, but it's really tough. And they were built on an urban context, right, of
Right, sure.
street grids and people per square mile and things like that. But we wanted to take a look and say, go back and say maybe there's something about these rural areas that are performing well, so the positive deviance with regard to physical activity, and what's going on in those places, so that we could build either interventions or better models to assess rural environments and intervene, whatever it may be.
Yeah, it sounds like you're trying to flush out the true effects of being rural versus not rural.
Yeah, and what factors are associated with rural, highly active rural places.
Yeah.
And therefore it's kitchen sink, everything in the kitchen sink in here. Some social.
You're trying to actually create like a formula.
In essence, yes.
Around this like saying, like when you measure these when you're looking at rural physical activity for those who are the best at it, this is what you should include in your measurement. Is that what you're getting at?
Right.
Yeah.
First step.
So
doing
a lot of model testing is what you're doing. So yeah, very cool.
So what's different about these places compared to those that are less active?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
So I mean the data set is built. I haven't looked at it in a long time. I know, of course, I'm a peon. I use SPSS, so I mean you can laugh at that, but
that's not a laugh. That's a very powerful software. That's a very appropriate software to use.
So to the rest of the group, fundamentally, is this thing built right? Is there something we're missing? Is there too much in here? Is it, are there specific questions? What do y'all think?
This is Renee. I think that I like everything that's been put in. You've done a lot of really hard work assimilating all these data sets. But I think part of it might be until Shay looks at some of the descriptives, knowing what type of variability we have might be important to help if we need to refine it or down it all. I know you've looked at some of the variability, Christian.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So, I guess that's my one thought, because there's so much, although I think all of it's important, but there might be some refining as we are able to refresh our memories on the descriptives that is necessary based on the type of data we have. That's my one thought that I have on it. But I think based on all of what was available and having to figure out where that was and what it was, you've done a great job, and I think it captures a lot of that.
Yeah, thank you. The one thing to remember, and I think I mentioned this to you, Shay, but yes, I did talk to you about it. The dependent variable was calculated through small area estimation.
Yeah.
That's always been the hang up. We haven't had a good rural physical activity guideline, prevalence in rural places. Jeff Whitfield from CDC, he sent some comments about how to structure it. Just don't use those variables like education and income that were used to do the estimation when you're running your model, because they're already factored in there basically. Some estimate.
Yeah, right. So you're basically double counting.
Yep.
The variance explained. Yeah. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, I'm trying to get familiar with. I'm coming off. I had a submission yesterday. It was like I'm just coming off one thing and rolling into the next. So I do apologize if I'm still trying to get a little caught up on what everything's going on. But yeah, that's where I need to start, is to get a sense of that's just how I see the numbers in there. It's almost like a visual form for me, and I can't explain it. But
I understand.
I start to actually run the descriptives. I get a sense of this is what this variable is telling me at its basic level, and it's whether it's frequency or whether or not I'm looking at means and deviations, and then I can say, okay, this is kind of how this is going to play out. It seems like you have a lot of just bivariate analysis around that DV and like what's related to it, what's not.
Mm-hmm.
That can be flushed out using just a correlational analysis, and then that will set you up for the next step. And that's something that you discuss as you build your model in the end, right? So that's what you're trying to get at. I think that's what you're going for.
Yeah.
And then that says, well, these, we tested all of these things, right? You don't want to omit anything about what you've tested, but then in the end you say our final model, and then you use fits of parsimony to get at that, and that will show. You describe all that stuff when you're writing this up, depending on what your research question ultimately will try to answer.
Yeah.
So I hope that's what you want to hear.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically what quote unquote environment variables are associated with physical activity,
right,
in the most rural counties. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds a lot similar like the occupational therapy project I was just on with Krista, where we were building what we call it a success profile for their students in the OT program. And we were basically, the end result was to build a risk score system that what is the prediction or predictability of students passing their licensure exam based on measures within the program. That's not totally what you folks are going for, but it's a similar process where you're building that model because you have all of these variables that explain unique things by themselves. But now you're trying to say, okay, well, if you're ultimately going to looking at rural physical activity between males and females, you want to be able to say these are the things that matter most because they apply directly to rural areas. In order to promote physical activity, right? You're looking to try and find where do you intervene? What is most important to intervene on? I think, right? Is that what you're getting at?
You're right on, brother.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a similar process to build that, and then in the end, you build the model, you test the models, and then you show through inferences that it's, whatever the regression coefficient is how strong the effects are, and then you can run standardization so you can compare them. It's no big deal.
Anybody else have other thoughts about this data set, or how we might go about it?
I have a question, which I hope isn't, I know I'm a teacher, I'm supposed to say there's no stupid questions, but hopefully this one isn't one of them. Are you hoping to run these analyses with the quantitative data just for the counties you studied in depth with the qualitative, or for like all the positive deviant counties in the country?
No, it would be, that is a good question. It would be for the most rural counties. Well, it depends on the question. Yeah, it depends on the question. I mean, do you want to compare urban and rural and see what's different, or do you want to see my interest is among the most rural counties. So we knock it down. I have the rural, so the percentage of the population that's rural.
Yeah.
So among the highest quartile of that, which places are most active, and then among those most active, among the most rural counties, what's different among the most active, comparing essentially the most active and the least active.
Least active. Okay, that's what I thought you were getting at.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting thinking about like the natural environment, because you have max air temp.
Oh yeah. And
heat index. So of course I thought, well, what about the lowest temperature? If you're looking at the whole country, that might be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no clue what's going to come up, right? I mean,
right.
I would wonder, is there a threshold? Like, is there kind of like a happy medium somewhere where it's like everything kind of below a certain temperature trickles off big time, and like you can map that geographically?
Mm-hmm. The other thing we have is we have census region, we have so I mean, those things could vary regionally too, right? So
right.
Do you control for it? Do you separate it that way? Whatever it may be. So. And if you recall, among the most rural places, the ones out west were what came up in the list of positive deviants. So we kind of forced if we were to do a qualitative study, we'd want to force, let's look at within a region what's most active and least active, comparing those kind of places. Kind of take out the social differences, the snowmobiles versus ATVs, that kind of thing. So, right. Yeah, good question. I mean, this is ripe for many questions if the data set's okay, right?
Yeah, it sort of gives me heart palpitations, but that's because that stresses me out.
You say tomato, I say tomato. You say myocardial infarction, I say excitement. So
yeah, exciting.
Any other thoughts about this data set? Or I think I have some ideas on next steps, but any other questions or thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So it seems like maybe for the next call, we could, if Shay, I know Shay's entering into a new faculty gig, but if there's a way to present descriptives at the next call, even if I do it or something, if Shay, you can't make it, you and I would have to get together and just run through the data set. I could give you the files I have, and then you could just take a quick look and just ask questions, get to know it, that kind of thing. So maybe the work would be on you and me, or if anybody else wants to do that too. But I think maybe a presentation to the bigger group at our next meeting of the descriptives would be worthwhile. Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Yep, I hear no dissension. If you
No, and if it
disagree-
makes sense, add another person into that pot. I'm happy to help in whatever way makes sense, but I also don't want to add another person if another person isn't needed, Christian.
Sure. Okay. Go ahead, Mike. Was that you? Sorry.
No, I was just confirming.
Okay. Sorry about that. So what we'll do then, Shay, maybe after the call, we'll just confirm it, sometime in the next couple of weeks, maybe to run through things, get to know the data set. And then you can just, pick through my brain about what I was thinking with it or where the data came from. And Renee, if you're available, when Shay and I can get together, maybe we could just use the GoToMeeting thing again. So we
Perfect.
could share screens and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So I will start maybe an email after the call for the three of to nail down a time. Okay.
Sure.
And then hopefully we will all be able to get back together in. Geez, we're getting semester startup time. Mike, when does your semester start?
21st.
Renee?
Wow.
I think that's the same date we start. I think.
Yeah, we start the week prior. Okay.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
You guys start early.
Yeah, Lauren, when do you start?
The 4th, after Labor Day.
Amen to that. Yeah,
I like those schedules.
I'd like that. Should we look at the week of Labor Day to get this whole crew, the larger group?
I'll be out of town that week. So.
Okay, good move.
Hey, Christian.
Yeah.
Just one quick question, and you'll have to remind me because I know we've been working on this project for a few years. Is there anything that we haven't presented at ALR that you think would be worthwhile putting into results will be coming type of abstract format that, like around the quantitative stuff maybe?
It would be the quantitative, yeah.
Because that might be something to think about, because ALR is definitely specific around if you have results coming, they're okay with them being in that way, as long as you outline when they would be finished type of thing.
Okay.
And so that might be something to think about in terms of the descriptive feedback, and maybe it's an email round not to add one more thing to our plate, but that call, I think, is at the end of August.
Yes,
So there's time, but not a ton of time.
due August 31st. So how about we get can we get this group together maybe that week of August 20th? So that we maybe the 23rd or 24th, so that we could talk through some stuff and get an abstract put together. Or even like Renee said, do it by email for those that can't attend.
I can do that.
Works for me.
Yeah, that should work.
Okay.
Yeah. I can make time.
Yeah. Shay, when's your semester start?
Same as Lauren, the 4th.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Well, good. Then you won't have anything to do before that.
Yeah.
Anything to do before that.
First class closing out on the 24th, and then I've got basically 2 weeks to implement new curriculums. So.
So maybe 22nd, 23rd, 24th in that range, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
Yeah, that's fine with me. They're gonna be doing their final exams. So.
Okay. And then Shay, you and I, and then if Renee is available, we should get together then. What day is today? First, maybe by the end of next week.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just give me a date. I'll make time.
Okay. All right. I will start that by email. I got to look at a couple of things first here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I think the other thing around this work is that with ALR fits that intended, unintended outcomes type of slant of being able to we can frame what this work around that. Not that it has to match the theme, but I think it does. And having a rural voice around the table in those conversations, I think, is appreciated. So just from that angle.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to think. Anything left undone? Anybody else have any thoughts to put out to the group or questions? Vacation spots? I mean, do we really want to talk about that, or?
Did everybody have a vacation of some sort?
Not really.
Oh.
But I did just book a trip for my wife and I to Barbados after Christmas. So
Oh, sweet.
that's something to look forward to. Yeah, it gives me hope. Look forward to.
Hope for the light.
It's our 20th wedding anniversary, so I figured I needed to do something. So.
Oh my gosh! Congratulations.
So looking forward to that.
Awesome. Lauren's had a good vacation recently.
Yeah, I helped lead a 11-day canoe trip in northern Quebec, which was pretty epic.
Wow.
Awesome.
Renee, have you gotten anything?
I was at the beach with my family for my grandmother's 90th last week, and I've got 2 little beach babies that love to run and attack that ocean water, so that was pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah. Fantastic. And then Shay and Megan are finishing up their student work, so they don't get any fun.
Oh.
No fun.
Just kidding. Jim, how are things out in the Dakotas?
Very busy, but yeah, they're good out here. Our daughter got married this past weekend, so that's good.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So, and we've got our 30th wedding anniversary coming up on the 6th, August 6th. So
Awesome. Congratulations.
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah. So been pretty busy. Vacation-wise, not so much. Maybe London in this fall in September or something. That'll be good. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
All right, guys. Well,
Christian, what about you?
a beach, North Carolina, and then Michigan as well. So Michigan's pretty nice. There's a lot cooking up there. I like it.
I mean, it's no North Carolina, but
I was in North Carolina too. So I mean, Outer Banks.
I don't know. Where were you in North Carolina? Why didn't you call me?
Outer Banks. Oh, I didn't go past your house.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't very close.
Disappointing.
Yeah, I did also book a a flight to go visit my brother out in Utah. So I'm excited about that in September. So I'm going to try to throw myself off a mountain on a bike. So we'll see.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. All the good stuff.
All right.
One other thing I just heard from Jeff Whitfield from the CDC. He wants to talk to, I think, the larger rural Paparin group about the rural data they've been working on. What's the exact term he used? It's over here. The Rural Data Center with NHANES and NHIS. So want to try to get him in a larger rural call.
Okay.
Yeah, he's been really helpful to this group too. So
You forward that my way as well, Christian.
yeah, I forwarded it to Amanda, and that's it. So I'll send it to you too.
Oh, that works. That's who will help us.
Okay.
It happens. So that's awesome.
All right, guys. Well, we're at time. Shay, thanks for joining in. Thank you, everybody else, for being here.
Thank you. Nice to meet everybody.
I'll follow up with a couple of emails with trying to set a time for the next large group call, and then another one to Shay and Renee just to try to set up something on the 8th or 9th to look at the data.
Great.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all for making time.
Thanks. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.